Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Garth Network. I'm Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And we're back with a special bonus episode to wrap up our month-long Camelot Forever celebration, where we're celebrating Knightriders' 40th anniversary. And tonight we've got a bunch of interviews coming up. And I just want to remind everybody that these shows we put together are free of charge, presented by the George A. Romero Foundation. And if you're interested in making a donation, there's a couple of ways you can do that.
Yeah, the first way is by going to the George A. Romero Foundation.org website, newly revamped, sign up for the newsletter. And since our show on Saturday night with Ed Harris and Donald Rubenstein, Wave 1 of the Knightriders swag has been uploaded, along with some pretty cool Garf official swag. So head over to the shop there. It's a great way to donate. It's a great way to show off your support. We really, really do appreciate it.
Another way to support the Garf is to visit our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly subscriber at levels between $3 and $50 per month. And we also have exclusive material already uploaded, as well as planned for the future.
Yeah, so like Eric said, tonight we are wrapping up our Camelot Forever month-long celebration. It has been a heck of a month, man. We have packed April to celebrate Knightriders at 40, from Chris and Warner and Tom and Tasso and Marty and Ed Harris and Donald Rubenstein. I mean, we couldn't have capped off a better month with that interview from Saturday, but there's more. We have interviews tonight from Patty Tallman and Cynthia Adler. And at the end of the show, please don't forget to stick around, because for the first time, deleted scenes from Knightriders from the first edition workprint, the first cut, we're going to be showing off along with our friends over at the archive. So you guys are going to want to make sure you stick around for that. So go ahead.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, no, without any further ado, we'll go ahead and roll out the interview with Patty Tallman, who played Julie Dean, and that interview runs about 34 minutes. So we'll see you back here in a few minutes.
All right, guys. Enjoy.
I just graduated college, so I just was getting out of Carnegie Mellon and making my plans. I was moving to New York. I was staying with friends in the city, and I'd got an apartment with my friends and had an agent. Can't remember exactly how I heard about Knightriders, that George was doing it, but I hadn't met George yet. And so I thought that I would try to get an audition. I asked my new agent, I said, I might be able to get an audition because I'm from Carnegie Mellon, and maybe he'll know me because Tom. So, and I did. It was a really simple audition process, probably the simplest one I've ever been through in my life. And I thought all of them will be like this. I just went in, I met George. He was just the kindest person ever. I read the part, we talked about it, I read it again. I think I left, and then like a day later, they called and said, "Okay, you got the part." I was like, "What? Wow." And they said, there's going to be a little nudity. And I said, "Okay." And the only my biggest concern was how I was going to tell my parents, because I was still, I was 20, 21. And I called my mom from the payphone, as you did back in those days, and said, "Mom, I got the part." She was so happy for me. And I said, "So there's this thing. I'm going to have to show my tits." And Mom was like, "Well, we just won't tell your dad." And we didn't. So he went and saw the movie. It was like, Tasso was my boyfriend for 4 years through college. And Savini came in to teach makeup. And he and Tasso just hit it off. They're like kindred spirits, became really good friends. So I ended up hanging around with Tom a lot because I was Tasso's girlfriend. Mm-hmm. That's it in a nutshell. It's all good. Everything was good. No, we were good friends. And Tasso and I were still dating through Knightriders, but after that, it pretty much disintegrated. Like real life happened and the world opened up and we both kind of went our separate ways. I think we had been on set, we'd done some stuff, and then we just had a remarkable summer of hurricanes or whatever you call them, the tornadoes that would come through that part of Pennsylvania. So we got hit like with 5 tornadoes. And a couple of times it really destroyed the set. So we had to wait while Cletus rebuilt the sets. And Cletus and Barbara Anderson, Barbara was wardrobe on Knightriders and Cletus was our set designer. And they were our professors at Carnegie Mellon. So I knew them well. And Cletus and I actually were really good friends all through my adulthood until he passed away. We used to work out together. We would compete who was better in our aerobics class and stuff. We had kind of a friendly rivalry going on. Cletus was awesome. So we just kind of destroyed the Ramada Inn, unfortunately. It was, I don't think the Ramada really cared because we booked the entire place for 3 months and they were perfectly happy to have us there. They chastised us very little compared to what I saw. I was perfect, of course, in every way, but the others, especially the boys, were quite rambunctious and were up to pulling pranks on each other. Enormous pieces of furniture would end up outside and in trees and where they shouldn't be, and it was like people would go back to their room and their entire room is empty and things like that. It was just nuts, just completely nuts. There was a lot of alcohol consumed. Of course, I didn't do any of that. I can't even remember what I was doing. And I've got fascinated with the stunt department because I couldn't believe what they were doing. I ended up becoming a stunt woman. And a lot of it was because of the influence of those guys. It was mostly stunt men on that set, but I met their girlfriends and wives. And by the time I was working with George on Creepshow too, there was a stunt woman we started working with who knew all of those guys from Knightriders, and she was a real mentor to me when I finally moved to Los Angeles to continue my career. It was interesting how pivotal Knightriders was in a lot of ways for friendships, not only Tom and Tasso, but I was really good friends with Randy Kovitz. We all went to college together. Holly Hunter was a PA on the set. Like I said, Cletus and Barbara Anderson, there was a lot of familiar faces to even get started. And then I made really good friends with like Ken Foray and a few of the others. Ed Harris was kind of a mentor to me, his wife, Amy. They were really sweet to me when I ran into them in the future. So I was just really kind of blown away by how many people I met on that was the first time I was ever in front of a camera. All my work had been on stage, mostly at school. And so having George as my director for that experience was just a gift from the universe because he was so open-minded and gentle. And I didn't know it wasn't a good idea to give the director ideas on my character. I think I could do this and there could be that. And he actually incorporated quite a bit of that. He was so generous, I don't know. I was really lucky. I think my favorite one is at the end. I created a whole story in my head around Julie's home life and why she left home. Jim Baffico was my teacher at Carnegie Mellon, and he played my dad. And so I have to yell at him and call him a fat slob jerk and things like that. And I was like, Jim, I'm really sorry. I love you. He's like, it's all right, Betty. So, I made up this idea that, of course, he's abusive to my mom, but that he was emotionally abusive to me, and he actually hit my mom, and I was trying to find a way out, which is why I was so willing to be a little slut and run off with Gary Lottie at the drop of a hat on a motorcycle. Holy crap. And then when he drops me off at home, my character was so precocious, innocent, but you know, a woman enough to be having sex with this boy. And I grabbed when we were shooting the scene where I'm leaving the house, I grabbed my teddy bear. I wanted to have a teddy bear because to me that kind of indicated her youth and innocence, and really she's not ready for this, right? She's not ready for this adventure, but she's on it. And so she packs her teddy bear in her knapsack, and when Gary drops me off at my house, I pull out that teddy bear. That was all me. That's all my idea. And I kind of, I'm like really upset with my teddy bear, and I'm crying. And the makeup lady came up, Jeannie came up to fix my makeup. I said, no, just leave it, let it run. So you see the streaking of the mascara, and she's a child. She's just this little girl trying to be a sophisticated woman, and it's impossible to pull off. She's scared, upset with her teddy bear. What the hell is she going to do? And then it was my idea to have the light go on in the house. And so then she's like, oh, fuck, I'm going to get my ass kicked. And I wanted that in there because she really was facing physical abuse. I mean, something bad was going to happen to that girl because she didn't get out of the house, right? She made a tough choice. It didn't work out. And now she's going to face the music. And that was all my idea. George liked it. I love doing that. I call that Sherlock Holmesing the script. It's like my teacher out here in LA, Charles Nelson Riley, who people know him as this outrageous comedian, but he studied with Uta Haag and Herbert Berghoff, and he was an amazing director. He was an amazing teacher, and he would say, "It's the actor's job to fill in the white on the page." It's like the writer puts all the black on the page, right? So the actor puts in all the white. There's a lot more white on the page than there is black. There's a lot of work for us to do, and that's part of the job of an actor, is to fill in all that story, the behind story, what's going on in the background, the psychology, the circumstances. That's fascinating to me.
So you've officially studied with Charles Nelson Riley and Jim Baffico.
And Jim Baffico.
That's amazing.
It is, isn't it? It's kind of interesting.
It's two opposite sides of the same coin, kind of.
Yeah, it's they're both so valid in their thoughts. That's the thing about the arts. There's never a wrong perspective. It's just a perspective, and you take it and you pick and choose. You find what works for you. Maybe there's a style of acting or of painting that really just works for you, and your talent can flow out through that particular technique.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say it's right or wrong? That's nobody's business.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about working with Iva Jean Saraceni and how, although she didn't have many lines, it just those facials, it must have been pretty easy to act against that.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I really related to her. We talked about it, and we talked about the fact that she put up with her character put up with a lot because she felt it was best for her. She was just doing the best she could with what she knew too. And I had that teenage daughter's disdain for her mother, which is painful, and it matures. It does mature. But in that moment, it was that awkward, icky part, right? As as we move through life, sometimes we hit really awkward spots in our personal development and kind of look back with a little cringe. Ooh, I wish I'd known different then. But I think everybody does do the best they can with what they know at the time. I haven't been able to been in touch with Gary's. Is he okay? Do you know?
Don't know.
Nobody know.
Don't know.
Oh, I hope he's okay. Lovely guy. I mean, really, just an amazing guy, really sweet. Enjoyed working with him. He was very protective. He was very cooperative. There's a generosity in him. Again, it was my first gig, so I didn't know. But once I got out into the world, I I can look back with gratitude and fondness because I know I was well treated, and it could have been a very different experience. Not that George would have ever put up with anything else. I think that was that's something that we don't really understand with directors, that how much influence they have, not only in picking the best actor for the part, but they have to keep in mind the chemistry on the set. So with a film, there's a little more leeway. In a television series, you can't have a bad apple. It's really bad when you have a bad apple, right? Because you're stuck with that. You're living together for 9 or 10 months. But with a film, even then, people who were attracted to working with George, they just tended to be really good people, have good hearts, and seemed to be generous. Gary was just exactly that. Very sweet guy. And really pretty to look at. Makes things better. It was also pretty comfortable. We weren't in, it was a Ramada Inn that was at the time old. And so, and it in a nowhere place in Western Pennsylvania, but it did have comfort. There was a restaurant there. You could get food if you needed it. There was a pool if the weather was decent. There was a hot tub or a room where you could go when your body was aching. It had the basics. You could walk to a little pod mall, a strip mall that had basic amenities. So it was comfortable enough. And I don't remember needing to leave. My family came and visited. I have pictures from those days when my parents drove with my siblings out to visit me on the set and hang out for a weekend. I think it was like a long weekend. And that was nice. Yeah, because usually in the summer I can go home and be with them, but not that year. I mean, he was magnetic. He is magnetic. I know you can tell that when you watch his performance. That is actually how it feels when you're with him. He's magnetic. He's a force of nature. So you don't quite know what he's going to do or say. And that's a little terrifying. But the thing that it's again, that George Romero thing. He's a lovely person. He's just a dear. And I was too intimidated and to talk to him much, but I followed him around. I would go to the set when he was there just to watch him work, because I knew that was a master. I was getting a master class. And the problem with that is that when somebody is that good as an actor, I'll be specific, as an actor, but you can't tell what they're doing. If somebody's not very good, you can see their technique or their lack of technique maybe. But with Ed, it's just seamless. He's just in character. So you're just watching this magic happen. Yeah, it was whenever I could, whenever it was a scene that there was going to be, it wasn't, a closed set like in a tent or something, but it was actually open so I could see what was going on. I would go and watch. He really is really something else. Very sweet guy. We were on the motorcycles, which are then braced, safely, so you could sit on it. And they were sitting, and I think they had, one slightly ahead of the other to make it look like we were really, and then they're on a flatbed, and the flatbed's being towed and the cameras are, for one setup, the cameras were basically in the back of the truck. And then for the other, the cameras are either on one side or on the other side, shooting this way or shooting that way, depending on who they needed to get. And it was really silly. But, for me, all of it was so interesting. Is this how you make a movie? Oh, that's cool. That's a cool trick. But as the day wears on, you're like, oh, okay, all right. I got it's enough. I'm done now. No, we get to do it another 45 times. I don't think I'd read a lot of Stephen King yet. I have subsequently read like everything ever, but I'd known of him enough that I was excited that he was coming on the set. I actually talked to him quite a bit. he was very accessible, and he was there with Jim Baffico. You know, that whole scene outside, Jim is like drunk and laying there, you know, and Steven's behaving badly, you know, being the heckler. And George would come over often to talk to him. So I was actually, I felt, I don't know why I felt like it was okay for me to talk to him. I liked him enormously. And he was another one, just as, you know, it's so interesting. These big, sweet guys like teddy bears, but they write the most horrific horror stories, you know, just terrible things happening to women and children. And it's like, oh my God. And they're the nicest people in real life. Maybe they purge all their demons out on the page or something. I don't know. What do you think? What is that?
It's the quiet ones you got to watch. You know, I mean, that's what it is.
I thought of Steven recently. I was thinking I want to get in touch with him just to say hi. I haven't tried to do that in a really long time, and maybe I should. Maybe this is a little prod from the universe. I was so naive, and I had not really thought about the idea of stunts as being a career choice. I'd always been very physical. I just finished my British Society of Fight Directors test. And so I was good at that stuff. I love stage combat. So there was stuff that was still very fresh. And I never figured I'd use it much because women didn't. I would love to have been Errol Flynn. You know, I would have loved to have been able to go do that. But at that time, the end of the 70s, really, when you think about it, there just wasn't a lot of women being action heroes. And I wanted to be an action hero. There just wasn't any vehicle for that. But that being said, I watched these guys do this stunt work, and they were doing stuff like Renaissance Fair, which is kind of close to my heart. The horses and jousting in that period and all of that has been a fascinating period of history to me. And I loved swordplay, you know. It took period sword technique classes and all of that. And so it started to, something was cooking in the background. And then as I met stunt women, their wives and their girlfriends were often other stunt women. And I realized, girls do this? You know, like, this is cool. This is interesting. So after Knightriders, when I moved back to New York City, I continued my period sword technique classes, and there were stunt people, New York stunt people. All the guys that they hired for Knightriders were from LA. So they weren't guys I would have ever have met and worked with before. But I ended up in New York because I was pursuing a theater career, and I met the New York stunt guys. And one of them finally said to me in our class, you know, I need a stunt woman 5'9" with red hair to fall down some stairs for this actress. Would you do it? And I went, okay. You know, like, I don't know. Yeah. Whatever. I was working in the Macy's little girls department. You know, I said, sure, I'll do anything. and they started to train me and take me along doing this stuff. And I loved it. That job was, I had to fall down some stairs for the soap opera actress. And of course she's wearing, you know, lingerie. So there's no place to put any pads. And the director loved me. And he said, that was amazing. Can you do it again, but make it funny? I was like, okay. You know, so I kind of did this ass over teacups fall, and they loved it. And I got paid $1,200. That was as much as I made in a month in the little girls department. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, what is this thing they call stunts, and how can I participate? You know, what can I do? So I started to train with stunt people. And that became my bread and butter work, you know, in between acting jobs. I'm 63 years old. I have no interest in getting hit by cars anymore. You know what I mean? I'm enjoying being fat. Being fat means a size 8. I used to be a size 4. When I was doubling Laura Dern, I was a size 4, that tiny little person. But and yeah, now I'm a full on. I have a figure now. I'm padding. I'm not interested. I appreciate the stunt world. It's very different now too, that with the technology that we have because of CGI and other things they can do. Back in my day, we really had to do the thing. A special effect meant you didn't get burnt up. They just put the fire a little further behind you. That was the special effect. So I don't know. I don't know what I would do. They have granny zombie killer. That would I could be. I actually really dig that. Barbara comes out of the cave she's been in since the 90s, starts slaughtering zombies. Dude, you don't know how to do that. Get out of my way, honey. I'm going to take care of this. Well, there's so much that I hadn't seen shot, like you were saying. I wasn't in most of the movie really, and so getting to see the whole film was wonderful. I went to Los Angeles. I came out to LA with my mommy to see it. And it was so exciting and overwhelming, and I didn't know what to make of the whole thing. I loved watching the movie. I thought it was incredibly sad at the end. In a way, but I did love the metaphysics of it. I love that George did that. And actually, to me, it had a Stephen King metaphysical quality to it, with the ravens and Billy and Merlin. Just very interesting. I loved Brother Blue. And I remember going to the bathroom after the movie in the theater after the screening, and Amy came in, Ed's wife, and we're peeing next to each other in the stall. She's going, I just love that you let your mascara just run down your fucking face. That was so good. Just I'm like, I'm peeing right next to Amy. This is so weird. Yeah, boy, it was an introduction into the world. But I was pleased with some of it. I was pleased with the like that last shot sitting on the curb crying with my teddy bear and the light goes on. I was pleased with that. So there were things that I did know to be grateful for. I was like, I didn't know my nipples showed through my shirt like that. Oh my God. Things like that. Why didn't they tell me? Because they wanted them to, Pat. But seeing my friends up there, I wasn't in the movie enough, I think, to be that worried about my appearance. I was mostly mesmerized by everybody else. I thought Savini was amazing. I didn't know he was such a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so good. He was so good. What an interesting part. To have you're this badass dude, but you've got this big heart and you're kind of a dick. And then you realize, oh, there's this whole character arc, and he just flowed with it so beautifully. I wish he would do more acting, really.
Even just the physical appearance of him versus Ed, it's perfect.
It is. It's perfect.
Dark versus the light. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're both beautiful men. It's not, they're both, it's just the yeah, you're right. Just the physical. And what Savini was willing to do, and what Billy so clearly drew a line, just so clearly stayed in his integrity, even if it meant making everybody else very uncomfortable. And he just got so big after that, George wouldn't have been able to get him. I don't think Ed would have been able to take that kind of time off, because he was just in such hot demand shortly after that. So, because the movie took a long time for movies. It was a long time. I think that my experience has been, because I've done so many Romero projects, that people know about it. And so they're usually referring to a body of work, not mine, not George's, and that I've been participating here and there. So I didn't feel that so much. I think just recently, like I mentioned, I'm surprised by young people that come up to me about it. That's most recently what I've noticed. Just that it's getting another life, which isn't that awesome? It's so fantastic. It's really a beautiful thing about being in this business, that a project you love and care about can keep going way beyond you.
Mhm.
That's really amazing. What I'm hearing is just that it was such an unusual movie. It's not what they expected. They love all the themes of it. They just think it's a really unusual film. And I think I need to ask more questions now from people when they say that, when they say something to me about it. Oh, yes. He was not any different than Merlin. He was Merlin. That's Blue. He just talked like that. He just was magical and saw magic in everything. And he would ska, and he would, he'd rhyme, and he just saw magic in everything. And his outlook was in making everything more beautiful. And so part of that was drawing attention to you, whatever he saw in you. He was, again, another really generous soul, just really lovely, extraordinary. And we all talked about that in a loving way, behind Blue's back, just that was him. What I loved about George was that he was, as I've mentioned, just really willing he wanted the actor to put in 2 cents. That's why he hired you. You know what I mean? That's why he hired Ed Harris. That's why he hired Brother Blue. He wanted Blue. He didn't want him to do something else. He wanted him to do just what he did in the audition. And I think he just saw my inexperience as a benefit. He just saw that as being, oh, that's Julie. That's what I want in Julie. Just that goofy innocence, that the freshness. So I think that was, I meant to mention that earlier. That's one of the gifts of the director, that they already see the quality that you bring in, and that's all they want from you.
Mhm.
Just give me that, yeah, no, he was just, it's such a loss. He was so giving, and his crew, and I'm sure you've talked to most of them, if not all of them. They're just, nobody will say ever a bad thing about George, other than maybe he was too nice. His crew was so loyal to him. They worked like clockwork. There was a rhythm and a flow that we got stuff done that Hollywood crews would just, love to have been able to do. And they would do anything for George. I think sometimes we'd get a new producer from from the studio that might not know George well, and the crew was so protective of him. If they ever got a sense that a producer was being a dick, his life would be miserable for as long as he was on our set. They were very, very much protective of this lovely man that they knew they owed so much to. He gave everybody a shot. If he thought you should have a shot at a better job or more lines, he gave them to you. He wanted you to have that. It's how unusual. I saw guys starting off as PAs, or just volunteering, and he moved them up as he saw them develop, and he believed in them even when they couldn't believe in themselves yet. And I feel like that as an actor, he believed in me even when I didn't know how to believe in myself. And just would say things to me, like when we were doing Night of the Living Dead, he would just say, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. I know what's going on right now. I got it. And that's just because he was sitting there watching. Tom was directing. So I know that Billy Butler has mentioned this too, from Night of the Living Dead, that he could see that Billy was really trying, and that he was feeling stuck, and he just would say, you're doing great. You got this. You're doing great. Don't worry. He just had a way of knowing when you needed to hear a thing. So yeah, I was so blessed to have George as my first film director. Give me a little bit of confidence and love to carry me through the years. I try to remember back in those days. Oh yeah, remember when you felt like an actor and not a piece of meat? Yeah. That was George. Marty again. Oh, what a great guy. Amazing. And I did work on Jurassic Park with him. I'm trying to remember if I talked to him when we were shooting. I wasn't in the scenes he was in. I was doubling Laura Dern. I was her stunt double. I don't think so. I don't think I saw him on the set, but I saw him probably at an event for Jurassic Park later, and we did have a moment together of, wasn't that a great time? Wasn't that great? We were so lucky. He was so good, you know. And like I said, Ed and Amy. Who else have I seen since then? Ken Foray quite a bit. We bump into each other at events all the time. Who else? Who else? A lot of the Pittsburgh boys, you know, I see when I go back, or if they've been brought to a convention, it's always a joy. Like I saw Bomba, and I haven't seen Nikki in a really long time, but yeah, it's great to pull out the Romero card, because you know that you've shared something special, and you're grateful for it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if I met them on a Romero film, then they're good people. You know, they're not going to be stuck up bitches like so many of them are.
Sorry, I keep negating Matt's stream. Live TV, folks, live TV. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. Once again, we want to thank Patricia Tallman on behalf of the Garth Network, as well as the George A. Romero Foundation for spending some time with us and celebrating Knightriders.
Yeah, Patty's a wonderful storyteller. Just the enthusiasm and the warm memory she has of everyone. I could listen to her tell stories about anything that she's done, just
Absolutely.
because she just has a great recollection. She seems to always be in tune with folks on set and make a connection, and it's just hearing her laugh at some of the stories. Like, you could see the memories coming through in her mind, and she's laughing at it, and she gets it out to us. No, Patty's wonderful. I mean, this is the second time we've had her on the show, but especially about Knightriders, I think is a little bit more special, because I don't think we've ever gotten a chance to talk to her or hear her speak about Knightriders before.
That's right. Yeah, again, thank you so much, Patricia, for coming on the show. And, you know, we edited that down a lot. She was super gracious with us and patient with our questions. I mean, we tried to think of everything. And,
we were diving deep, and she was great. I mean, like I said, she had great memory. So we were trying to really ask some questions that maybe have never been asked of her before. And she was able to come up with a lot of great stuff. And it was a great time just sitting with her and listening to her for that time.
Well, up next, we have another interview with Miss Cynthia Adler, who played Rocky, who demands that we now call her Sir Rocky. So fair enough. Here's our interview with Sir Rocky. It runs about 24 minutes.
I had met George and I had met Christine, and we met at some kind of party or something. And we were talking and everything like that. And we kind of became not close friends, but we knew each other, you know. And he called me one day and he said, I'm doing this movie, Knightriders, and I want you to do a part in it. Are you interested? And I said, sure. He said, can you ride a motorcycle? I said, no. He said, well, you don't have to, because we've got stunt riders for you, so we don't care. He said, but I'm interested in you doing it. You will be away for, maybe 2 months or something like that. How do you feel about that? And I said, fine. I was married at the time to somebody else, actually. And it was very interesting. I mean, I had no idea. And I came up to, in Pennsylvania, to this little, you know, I think we were in a Ramada Inn. I can't even remember. We were in like one of those places, and we were taking it over. And I saw the cast and everything, and I had an idea for what it was going to be. Of course, I had the script, and I had to read the script and everything. But I had no idea. I mean, George was a horror film man, so this was a very different thing that he was doing. But I was on board, and I went, and was there with everybody, and ready to rock and roll with it all. I was seeing this guy. We were all kind of together in the lobby, and I was seeing this guy outside, and he was kind of like talking, and I don't know what he was doing. He was sort of talking to himself and, saying things and everything. So I went over to George and I said, George, I said, there's a guy out here and he may be like bonkers. I think he's talking to himself. He says, oh, that's Ed Harris. He's the lead in the film. Don't worry about it. He's just going over his lines. But Ed, I thought Ed was fantastic. I mean, he's a brilliant actor, and I love him too as a person. I love him. So, yeah, I thought he was just incredible. But that was kind of a funny thing. We immediately, when I arrived there, we met a lot of the cast. We all kind of met each other, and it was such a wonderful group of people. I mean, everybody was very welcoming. Everybody was, out there talking to each other, talking to all of us. We were all kind of, exchanging where we came from, what we were playing, what we were going to do. And it even started off as a really beautiful experience, for all of us, I think. We were stuck with each other through storms and stuff like that. And I think that because of that, it helped the film a lot. We were very familiar with each other. There wasn't anything that seemed strange. There was just really a lot of love on that set, I have to say. And I've done, other work, and, I love everybody I've worked with, but this was a very special, doing this film was a very special experience. The cast, we became closer and closer because, we were there stuck together. But besides that, everybody was very generous in their acting. They were making room for whatever each of us wanted to do, which was really interesting and beautiful, actually. I hung with the boys and I hung with the girls. I mean, I hung with the thing is, there's almost no separation because we were always all together, so we hung with each other. But yeah, I did hang with a lot of the guys, but I hung with the girls too. So I have to say, it was very cool, very nice, it was very funny because Stephen King, of course, was on the set. Doing his eating thing, and which was bizarre, and but it was a very supportive set, and it's not always like that when you're doing a film. A lot of people do their own thing, or there's people that don't like other people and they kind of stay away from them. But this was very congenial. That's what I have to say, and I think you can see it in the film. That there was a kind of love between the actors. I kind of felt very bad after the film opened. I know what Christine had said, about the fact that the mix, wasn't perfect. But we got good reviews, actually, oddly enough. And the film could have really gone, because of what it was, it could have gone really out there. And then, of course, The Equalizer came and banged it out, So as Chris said, it sort of just wiped it a bit. And it was very sad in that sense, I think maybe there'll be, there's a chance that this could, rear its head again and people watch it, because and I know that George, it hit him very hard when this didn't go out the way that it could have,
Yeah.
And, I felt very bad about that for him. for him. It, it had so many parts and things in it. It's so funny. When I saw the interview, that you sent me, that we did with Christine and Warner, and they were talking about Gary Lottie, who kind of disappeared. I mean, he was this gorgeous hunk, that you thought was going to be like major movie star after that, and that was sort of the end. There was no, so yeah. Well, I would do my speaking, and then my stunt rider would get on the bike, in my costume and a helmet, and do all the riding. I couldn't ride a motorcycle. It was like Warner said in the other interview. He said Cynthia was going like this. 'Cause I'd never ridden a motorcycle. I didn't care. I would have done it, but I looked like an idiot doing it. So yeah. So I just, they would put my stunt rider, I would, do some lines, and then my stunt rider would get out there, stick on the hood and ride. I had some pretty good stunt riders, so it was pretty good. I took it in my own direction. I mean, George let me do whatever I wanted. I mean, he was great that way. I mean, he really liked it. So he said, yeah, do it. But yeah, it was, it was very funny because Robert Altman, and you probably know who Robert Altman is. Robert Altman saw the movie, and I was fairly close to him, and he said to me, Cynthia, he said, I really liked you in this movie, but, you were in a different movie than everybody else. Which I thought was very funny. That was my delivery, I had my delivery, yes.
I'm just curious, was there more moments where you referred to the basics that maybe didn't make the final cut?
Yeah, there definitely more moments, yes, that we did it. Yeah. But they had to cut down, the film's long, and they had to cut down the film a bit. And yeah, so a lot of them didn't make it.
Yes, it just seemed like something that maybe didn't have time to fully manifest, like it maybe got, just didn't get as much mileage as originally intended.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting, I was sort of, a dykey character. And, I was sort of the little bit of the soul, of the riders and the jousters and the, and I sort of tried to, get everybody moving in a proper direction and get them out there, doing what they can do and doing it in the right way. Basically that was Rocky. She was,
Oh, it's pretty rock solid, infallible character overall, I mean, just across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody had their ebbs and flows, but not Rocky. She knew what she was.
That's right. I know what I am, exactly. and she kept that way. That's true. That's very, very true. It's so interesting because I never did a part like that again. Something like that. That was a unique thing that I did. I do a lot of satire. I did a lot of satire in my life, where I do tons of characters, all different kinds. And, I've done one-woman shows and stuff like that. And, I think that Rocky was a unique thing that I did for myself. And for George. I loved doing it. I loved being there. It was a great experience, So many films that people are on. I have friends who have done films and they've said, God, it was so hard, and some of it was awful, and some of the actors were weird, and they wouldn't talk to you after you shot, and they would, and I was just very lucky to have this extraordinary experience for the first big film that I did.
Can you talk about working with Brother Blue as Merlin?
Oh, beautiful guy. Absolutely beautiful guy. With a heart of gold, this guy. And he was mystical. You know, he had stories. He was just a beautiful, beautiful guy, really. And it was a pleasure to work with him. His energy was just gorgeous.
Did you? Is there any other any wild stories you can recall from the Ramada, perhaps? Any Ramada?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. You know, it's so much that I don't remember from that time. You know, of what happened. I think we would play tricks on each other sometimes, and we, you know, we would get together and tell jokes, and then we would get together and, you know, sometimes we would imitate a scene that we did, but do it in a dirty way. Or do it easy way, you know, and kind of like, you know, say, what if we did this? And what would George do if we did it? You know, and, you know, yeah, it was, and the thing that was so interesting was we were always with different people. So we would hang out with this one, and we would hang out with another one, and there were always stories for on set of what we thought we should do, you know, and how we would change the character if we could, you know, and you know, it was there was a lot of, you know, there were a lot of also people on set that would ask questions, you know, when we were all together. How do you feel about that scene? Do you think that I could have done it better? Or do you think that there was something I could do if we shoot it again tomorrow? You know, we would all talk together. And it was very helpful to people, you know, who maybe thought that they maybe did the wrong thing, you know, in the scene that they were doing, or didn't do it well enough. And it was very supportive. It was supportive theatrically. It was supportive, you know, emotionally. It was a supportive set, very supportive set. George was just wonderful. He was maybe too wonderful. Maybe he let people do whatever they wanted sometimes, you know. He was great to work with. He was very understanding. You could talk to him about anything. I felt he was a very special human being, quite truthfully. And he was there for all the actors. So, and he didn't have a bad temper. He didn't, you know, he didn't yell when he felt you didn't do something right. He just said, take it again, do it again. Let's try it again. And I felt, you know, I always felt very secure around him, and I trusted him. I trusted what he felt. And also, if I had an idea and I said, George, I think it should be done this way, he said, well, try it, you know? So there was no, you know, it wasn't like I'm the director and screw you and, you know, you have to do what I say. It wasn't like that. And I don't know what everybody else has said, but
That.
Yeah. Yeah. They echo that sentiment. I mean, that's the prevailing, not even opinion, it's the prevailing fact about George is that he was collaborative, and he had a vision, and people respected it and wanted to achieve it, but they also felt that if they feel they could make his vision better through changing something, he would allow that, and you know, then go from there. And that's you know, I got to witness that firsthand with George, and it is one of the best things I could ever say about him, was that what people say about him, it was 100% through and through the truth.
Yeah, exactly. It's very special because there's very few directors like that. But he was wonderful. It was such a great experience. We all felt sad when we had to leave. We all kind of didn't, you know, we thought maybe we could just stay there forever and just, you know, all we just be together and maybe make some more movies. I'm kidding, of course. You know, but when it was time to go home, it was sad. Everybody was
It's like when summer camp ends.
Yeah, it was summer camp. That's exactly it. It was like a summer camp for like 3 months, you know, a summer camp. And or I think it was 3 months. I'm trying to remember how long we were there. Maybe 2 months. I don't remember.
I think did they say 6 weeks?
6 weeks, maybe. Well, I think it was more like almost 2 months, maybe.
When you added the damage or the lost time,
yeah, it was
probably
about 2 months. Yeah. But it was it went pretty fast, and it was wonderful. It was a great experience. experience, I have to say. I mean, I'm trying to think of other things that I could tell you about what happened during that time, because
Well, one question I was going to ask is about
Yeah.
a lot of people complain about the conditions. I mean, everybody obviously had a great time being with everyone, but the conditions themselves were actually pretty horrendous, like awful heat, bugs. Waiting around in the hot sun between takes all day, things like that.
Where your head would get burned. You would have to put something over your head because you would get burned. Yeah, absolutely. It was, and a lot of bugs, and you got stung sometimes, and you had to kind of live with that. And it was hard. That part was hard. Yeah. And waiting around in the heat, choking, half choking, and then you say, "Okay, we're ready for your scene," and you go, "Okay, I'm going to see if I can do it," So, yeah.
Pennsylvania summers are pretty brutal. I live in PA, and it's nothing but humidity and more humidity.
Yeah, exactly. Humidity and bugs. You were absolutely kind of like you wanted to jump into a pool or something, and you kind of want to run into a pool, but there was no pool to run into. There probably was, and I don't even remember. Maybe there was, but it was pretty brutal out there, and especially when you're out there doing scenes and everything in this heat, and you're covered in these costumes that are like burning you anyway. It's like you lost weight. I lost weight. It was a touching story in a lot of ways. It's I know that Chris said that when they were doing the screening and premiere, and there were problems and everything, but I think that people who saw it really loved it. I think that that's what after we did the screening and people were talking, everybody that I talked to said, "God, it touched me." It was a great little film. It was fun to watch, and had a lot of meaning for me, or whatever, which was really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sorry that it didn't do what George would have liked it to do. I just know that it affected him very deeply, and I think basically the actors did a really good job. I mean, really, Ed, of course, Ed Harris is brilliant, and was brilliant there, and he just, he's just an amazing actor. But I think everybody did, a really wonderful job on this film, even though sometimes it was, how can I say, it was a little out there, kind of overdoing a few things, but still it kind of worked for Knightriders,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I knew that Rocky was gay, Rocky was a dyke, and that was all that I knew. We never really talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
We never talked about what that meant or anything. It was just a fact, that I was tough and I was gay, and basically that was it.
Mm-hmm.
There was never like a lot of discussion about it, because it wasn't something that was being, headlined with my character. It's just where I was at.
Yeah.
And I was trying to show Pippin that I, took on who I was, and that he should too, in my own way, that he, he should, buck up and be who he is, not be afraid of that. Everything kind of moved, it had a kind of flow. And, even though we had to retake things, and things happened where things were destroyed, and there was this and there was that, but basically, George was great with that. He didn't let it deter him in any way. And he got back on the horse, you know what I mean? And we just kept going until this film was completed. There was something, and we all knew that, it was not about stopping or, saying, "Oh my God, this is not going to work now because look what happened." It's just, we went over it. We did it again. We, he had that, he never got freaked out. That was what I think I mean. He was not a person that got freaked out.
He stayed the course.
Yeah, he had a stability, and he stayed the course, and he did what needed to be done. Whatever that was, he did what needed to be done. So yeah, which was wonderful. I mean, really wonderful. You know, we were waiting for the sequel, but you know,
Still waiting. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it didn't blow my mind, but I loved it, you know. And then I thought, do I love it because I love everybody in it, and because I loved making it, and because I thought it was a film that people would kind of enjoy, you know. It's something that you just lend yourself to, and you look at. I mean, there's silly things in it where guys are falling, you know, the father is falling on the floor, and you know, I mean, you know, and the looks that people give, and the eating that they're doing, you know, in the background, and you know, some of it looks like, you know, ridiculous, but I felt that the movie kind of delivered something. I was never bored with it, and I never thought, oh, why am I sitting through this? Oh my God, you know. I just enjoyed it. I took it for what it was, and I kind of loved watching it. Loved all the work that we were doing. And, you know, I think when you're seeing it as an actor, you see it differently because you know the process that's been done, and you're close to the people that did it, and you kind of root for everybody, you know. So you look at it, and, you know, you love it in a different way than somebody that's just coming in and doesn't know what it is and just sits down to see it. It's very touching to see how everything kind of comes together and just evolves with all the editing and everything. It evolves into what it evolves into. And I thought, you know, it was a kind of little magical film that people would love, you know. People would love to see. Just sort of takes you away into something, and there you are with the little motorcycle riders and the motorcycle everythings, and you know, and the cops and the this and the that. You know, it's just it's you kind of lose yourself in it, and you just take the trip with the riders, you know, and with what they're doing.
All right. Once again, thank you to Cynthia Adler for spending some time with Matt and I, and just talking 40 years of Knightriders. You're on mute, Matt. Yep. Live TV.
It's like my first Zoom meeting, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to hear from Cynthia, who's really never gotten a chance to talk about Knightriders. I was just enthralled by her, and just like Patty, she's a great storyteller. I mean, just to hear her recount everything and all the feelings and emotions, you know, Knightriders was just one of those films that, you know, we really celebrate films like Dawn and Creepshow and stuff about being lightning in a bottle. But when you go back and you look at everything we've covered about Knightriders, that was really a special project, not just for George, because it's a very personal film, but for everybody involved. Had a lot of emotional attachment to that film and each other.
Absolutely. And I want to also, before I forget, I definitely want to thank Christian Stavrakis for setting up a lot of these interviews this month. It wouldn't have been the same without him. Much appreciated, especially for the two interviews tonight. And also thanks to we've got a whole team behind us that makes this possible. Ramona Striner, Colin Corcoran, Ryan Carr, Jeff Whitehead, of course, Suze Romero. Help me out if I'm forgetting somebody, man.
Oh man, like you said, there's so many people. But those guys and guys, thank you so very much for everything you've done behind the scenes to help us put this together. Ryan with his amazing art, Chris and Ramona for putting a lot of this stuff together, and Jeff and Suze for letting us spearhead a Knightriders 40th, because this was something we talked about last year.
Yeah,
we were
one of our first requests. Yep.
Yeah, we were talking about this and said, look, Knightriders turns 40, we want to do it, and they were like, do it, and we were like, yes. So we're hoping, I was watching the comments. I mean, it seems like you guys really, really love Knightriders, and we do as well. And, it's hard to believe it's been 40 years. It's only been 20 since I first discovered it. And it's grown on me a lot more in the last 5 or 6. And it's easy to see why now after spending so much time in that world.
Yeah, especially after this month. And we're not done yet. To cap off this celebration, I want to go ahead and invite Adam Hart from the George A. Romero Archival Collection on board. He's going to kind of walk us through some extra clips from the work print of Knightriders. So, Mr. Hart, how you doing, sir? And you were on mute. There he is.
Hello, it's darker in here than I realized. 1 second.
It's very, very moody, though. I like it. I'm into it. Yeah, how you doing, Adam?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Doing great. And real quick, talk about your role at the archive and what you've been up to lately.
So I'm a visiting researcher at the Pitt Libraries, and one of my in my purview, I helped process the archives. I was, one of the first people to be able to see a lot of this information, and I'm the first scholar that's had an opportunity to really do some research into the archival collection. And, there was a kind of unexceptional looking couple of tapes that were marked Knightriders, that had a date that seemed a little early and a running time that seemed a little long, that I came across last fall. And so I started going through it and realized that this was a different cut of the movie. And not just that, but I talked to Michael Gornick about it, and others, and realized that this was George Romero's first cut of the film. This was his, what would have been, according to Mike, like his preferred cut of the film. The one that he showed in February of 1981 to the funder, Salah Hassanen, and tried to convince him to release a 2-hour and 45-minute version of the motorcycle jousting movie.
And so, and you were kind enough to prepare a series of clips of some of the more significant moments for us tonight and allow us to kind of preview it here on the network. This is not by any means everything, but these are some of the more significant moments, right?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is he ended up cutting about 20 minutes from it, and it's clear from comparing the two cuts that he basically was trying to cut as little substance as possible. So there's a lot of just sort of trimming scenes, especially in the action scenes and all of that, where it's just like, well, we can cut this down. We can cut out some establishing shots. We can end this this conversation a little bit early, or take out this line here or there. There was no major trends. I haven't had a chance to look at it because it just got back into the library. The pandemic has played all sorts of unexpected havoc with the collection. But there's actually a 2-hour cut that would have been a 45 minutes excised from this original, quote unquote director's cut of Knightriders. And I'm curious what would have come out in that version. But in this longer version, the original cut, the main thing that's there that isn't in the theatrical is just sort of establishing the world, establishing the Renaissance Fair, little conversations with the supporting characters, the other members of the troupe. It's the sort of thing that, can kind of just be cut cut out without affecting the sort of like main plot lines, but that I think are, I don't know, like I like it. I like the way that it just sort of, brings you to this very unusual milieu and sort of gives you just like a little more time with the people, a little more time to see how things work and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And there's one more shot of Stephen King really digging into that sandwich.
Well, why don't do you want to intro the first clip? It's the Knightriders fair scene that features Sweet Sal. If you just give us a quick intro.
Oh yeah, so this is one of those scenes. It just sort of sets the stage. It's from very early on. A lot of the stuff that gets cut is from very early on, when there are sort of a larger world of characters that are there. These sort of the broader ecosystem of the Renaissance Fair hangers-on gets lost a little bit in the theatrical, like to focus on the motorcycle jousters. And this is just a little bit more of just like the other people who are there. And it includes an appearance by Sal Carollo, who is just like a local eccentric. Lived in Braddock and was a friend and occasional subject of documentaries from Tony Buba, who worked on several of Romero's films and whose brother edited Knightriders. Wait, am I correct in that? I'm sorry if I forgot. If Pat did Knightriders, he did Dawn. I know that. And
Pat
Mark
did some on Creep Show, right?
Yes.
I think Creep Show is where he started.
Yes.
I apologize. I feel like I should know that.
No worries.
Yeah.
We're all a family here. It's fine. All right, well, let me go ahead and roll that clip, and I'll have to be mindful of our own audio while I play it, because we'll have hot mics here. But here goes the Sweet Sal clip.
Let you in here. You agreed to 10%.
$7?
Yeah, $7. What the hell do you want? 700? I only sold 15 of them.
My partner took all my cash back to town. I told him to stop and pay your 10%. Guess he forgot.
Guess so.
I'll send it out here tomorrow.
Okay, that's good. Man, come on. It's not worth it. Let it go. Come on.
Listen, take a tip. Nobody wants all that fruit juice and bean sprouts. Beer, wieners and chips, that's where the money is.
Okay.
Beer, wieners and chips.
Beer? Hey, get out of here.
He's a sick bitch.
Very clever, very clever. But he's a comedian.
I believe it. Did Sweet Sal say he was a sick bitch? I think that was his parting shot.
He does actually appear in the theatrical, in the finished film, but you would have to know exactly who he was and how he was dressed to recognize him. But it is nice that he did get that he did get immortalized in the film itself. Yeah.
The next couple clips deal with the group or the Queen kind of dealing with the group departing or accepting Bon Tempe's offer. This first one is, let's see, I believe it's just a shot of the Queen outside. She's just saying that they're here, let's just roll it. It's only a couple of seconds here.
What's going on?
They're leaving.
I better go talk to Billy.
No. Merle's with him. You better go suit up.
And then I'll go ahead and roll this next one. It's kind of an internal housekeeping meeting. It's also led by the Queen, where they're also discussing Von Tempe's offer. Give me 1 second.
The hell would Steve set this up without letting us know?
Who's this other yo-yo?
He said something about being the lone agent.
He's some promoter from D.C. Says he's gonna make us superstars.
Okay, look, what is the problem? The lady just wants to hang around and check us out. She's not gonna shoot the damn thing till we get to Brower. She's all right. Well, she's a little uptight, but she's all right.
Yeah, and you got the hot store. Do you think that perhaps that's affecting your opinion?
Wait, is everybody going crazy around here or what? It's past 4.
We better get going.
Okay, that was kind of a little bit of an angry edge that we not elsewhere in the film.
Yeah, I like that one. I kind of wish that one would have been back in to see the struggle from everyone else's perspective, except mostly Billy's that we get, and that drum pickup at the end. I was like really excited for.
One of the things that you really notice seeing the longer version, but that's really consistent throughout all of the stuff that I've been reading in the archive, you know, not just like the early versions of the famous films, the completed films, but, you know, a lot of the unmade scripts and all that, is that as much as Romero sort of like thought of himself as a storyteller and as good as he was at telling stories, he always seemed to be interested in characters and sort of like the world more than he was in like getting from A to B to C in a narrative. And so, you know, it's just so interesting to me that when he was told he had to cut, he had to cut at least 20 minutes out of Knightriders, he, you know, like, I'm sure it was like pulling teeth to remove any of this stuff, but he tried to harm as little as possible. But just these little bits at the edges that he could take out without harming too much. It just sort of shows you how much his interest in Knightriders was not like, what's the story of Knightriders? You know, like just like in it, like if you were in like a Hollywood pitch meeting, like here's what happens, you know. It's much more about like, here's this unusual sort of setup in this troupe, and it's all about their ideals and their internal tensions, and, you know, like everything around that and all of the other characters other than Billy are just so important to him. And that really comes out in scenes like the two that we just saw, which are really tiny, but like you said, are giving the perspective of other characters, letting them like start to work it out, start to have these agreements, just sort of populating like psychologically the rest of the community in just like little bits and pieces, you know, as much as he could, while still like telling the story.
Yeah, especially that first scene. It kind of makes sense later on when Tim DeLeo kind of lashes out at Billy at that council meeting. Like you get more reason why he's frustrated.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the internal strife with the rest of people around Billy's inner circle, I think losing that minute and a half, I don't think would have been that big of a deal. I think it would have added more than what, you know, got taken out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And something, you know, there's several, you know, tiny little snippets that you also shared that it seems like a lot of it involves the struggle that the Queen had, you know, like those last couple of scenes, her dealing with the troop in Billy's absence. It seems like a lot of those moments kind of had to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's really that's a good observation, because in the theatrical version, it's not that she's like a flat character, but it's more that she like suggests, you see her and there's more going on.
Right.
But we don't really get much of a window into that.
It's still a mystery.
Yeah.
But that whole thing with her and Alan, I mean, it's like, what's that? I mean, we know what it is, but it's never spoken about.
Yeah. Like I think that, like I said, this is just kind of armchair psychology speculation. I don't really know, but just from reading all of this stuff, you just get the feeling that he really falls in love with these characters. And so like, that's why his running times are so long, why his scripts are so long, and like why he wrote so much is because he just liked these characters and wanted to not just explore them, but like do them justice, basically. And like I imagine that you would have shown the 2 hour and 45-minute version of a motorcycle jousting movie set at a Renaissance fair to like a Hollywood studio editor, and they could have cut an hour out of it. Like easy. Like that's a snap. Like the story is simple. We can just like pare this down. No problem. But like, how interesting would that be? Like
it lost its heart.
Yeah.
Not just because, like it would have been like untrue to the original spirit, but just because that's not the way that he made movies. Like, I really do feel like he would get lost in the characters over story, so that if you just sort of like extracted the story from any of his movies, like it's not that it wouldn't be true, but just like it's not compatible. Like it's and it, like with Knightriders, with all of the discussions about the importance of ideals and the way things are made and the way that you live and produce things, like this is obviously an extremely sort of like personal statement, but also one that kind of needs to reflect the ideals that it's discussing, that it's spouting,
Yeah.
Like you take the heart and soul, like all of these characters, the community, the sense of community out of Knightriders, and it's like, what's the purpose of it?
Yeah, it's just action. Be just action at that point. And that's probably what a Hollywood editor would see when they saw it. Yeah, action. This last scene features Merlin. Why don't you tee that one up for us? This is we've kind of saved the best for last here.
Oh yeah, this is spectacular. This comes from the very beginning of the movie. It's one of the first sequences, and Brother Blue, who played Merlin, gets a chance to kind of do a routine. It's not super long. It's like a minute long, but it's him, selling snake oil to a bunch of, skeptical but also naive looky-loos.
Some town folk.
Yeah, but more than anything, it's an excuse for him to sort of perform, and it's spectacular. It's wonderful.
All right, well, here we go.
The heat and fast of the Pharaoh. Let's go and try this. This is just like throwing money away on the colored water. I'm sorry, sir, but this is not the colored water.
Let me smell the stuff you have for muscles.
This stuff ain't fake, man. It's the real thing. It won't cure no cancer, but it can make you feel good all over. Lie, no jive. That's no lie.
I'll take 3 of these.
Hey, colleague alchemist. One sniff that recalls the past for this wonderful lady. Just like your mama's, right?
That's great.
Isn't that great?
That's a tragedy that didn't make the final cut. I mean, that one had to hurt the most to snip out of the theatrical version.
Yeah, I have to think so.
Yeah. And when you guys first started talking about this, I was like, oh, wow. You just said it was a special scene with Merlin. Got to see it. No, that's, I think it's,
I mean, did it lived up to the billing?
I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. No, and that's also a very odd angle on his character. You know, obviously we know he's a practicing medical physician, but that kind of goes outside that realm a little bit.
I love that Romero seems to that he really seems to be like appreciate hucksters. That's this kind of like archetype that he seems to really like. Not the con man, not Bontempi, but the huckster.
Right.
The guy who will give you a performance and sell you the snake oil, but that's not going to work, but you appreciate it because you got the performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what can you tell us is, what will maybe happen with this work print next? What's up, and also talk about maybe what's going on with the archive right now. What's up next?
Well, we've processed just about everything. There are the thing about the University of Pittsburgh libraries is that they are open to everyone. Unlike a lot of university libraries where you have to, be a student or faculty or like apply for a visiting permit. Anybody can come. There are, at the moment, restrictions because of the pandemic, but as soon as, as soon as it is allowable within the rules of the university or the policies of the university, anybody can come and take a look at George Romero's shooting script from Night of the Living Dead, or one of the early scripts of Knights, aka Knightriders, like that's bound in duct tape, and that includes like a letter from Ken Forey asking for a larger part for a young woman who's on the set, and with specific suggestions that the most remarkable thing is that you have Romero's response to the letter in which he writes out scenes in which this particular extra could be included in the shot, and like took it very seriously. You just get the feeling that he really valued collaboration even when it was, let's say, frivolous.
I've got to know who that side character was. I've got to find out. Let us know if you figure it out, Adam.
Well, I believe she's in one shot as his girlfriend.
Well, then we know who it is.
Yeah,
that was my first thought, but you never know.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
But like there's just gold, and then there's literally hundreds of drafts of unmade films, and like I know that people know like Resident Evil, which is a great, very just like remarkably gory script, but I've been finding just some really amazing gold just from stuff that I've never heard of, that there's never been anything written about, that is just like, here's a script he wrote in 1984 that's like a masterpiece, and it's a it's a tragedy that he didn't get to film it. It's just it's really exciting. And like I think it will really change people's understandings of George Romero as an artist. Like I've been working on a book about all this stuff, and my sort of like half tongue-in-cheek line about it has been, he was this remarkably, like, unbelievably prolific writer. So why should we let, some random finance guys taste about, like, their choices about which ones could go to film, could actually go into production, limit our understanding of George Romero's creativity, his imagination, and his, artistic and thematic interests. And it's just spectacular. As far as, like the work print, the moving image stuff is a little bit more complicated, in part because of rights issues, but also just we're trying to, because, like, this was on a VHS tape, and a lot of the stuff that we found was on VHS tapes, like, Jacaranda Joe, a short film that was, I think, mainly thought lost or not known about, that he made in the 90s, also on VHS. We kind of don't want those to ever go through a VCR ever again. So we're, like, in the middle of a transition through which digitized versions can be made available to researchers, but it's a process, and we're in the transition. But hopefully the whole thing won't take too long, and before too long, people who are interested can see for themselves the they can do the A/B thing that I did with Knightriders, the director's cut / work print, and their Blu-ray or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, you are a visiting researcher, correct?
Yeah.
So how much longer do you plan on spending on campus, or how much longer do you have to spend with the collection?
I'll be there one more year.
Okay, very good. Well, hopefully we can catch up with you next time we're in town, if you're up for it.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, I want to thank you again for bringing these clips on and kind of walking us through the process. And we've been in talks with you and with Ben. We're planning on doing some more stuff over the summer. So we're excited about teaming up with you guys and bringing more of this stuff to the network.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for keeping George's archive safe and letting us know how much is there, because it's always been known that George worked on a script here or there, but I mean the stuff that you guys have shared and uncovered just adds so many more layers to him as a person and as a filmmaker that we've never gotten a chance to know.
It's been so exciting. Yeah. So exciting. And it's so fun to share this. Like, as you can tell, you asked a question that should have taken like a 2-line answer that I then, talked for 10 minutes or something about, because I'm just excited to talk about all the really amazing stuff I've been reading and writing about. And it's just, it's great. Yeah. Anytime, please.
No, we can't wait to hear more. So again, we want to thank you and Ben and Adam Lowenstein, everybody at the university. Appreciate you guys. We're looking forward to doing more.
Yes, thank you guys for your partnership and everything you guys do. Seriously, it's wonderful.
Anytime, yeah.
All right, and actually, we're going to go ahead and roll out the show, but we have this one last clip. I kind of put together just a couple of the extra dialogue moments, but we're gonna kind of roll out with that one. So it's about maybe a minute long, and we will be seeing you. Actually, go ahead and preview the next Saturday's show, Matt.
All right, so guys, Saturday night we are hanging out with Michael Felsher, the director and producer of After Effects, the documentary on Dusty Nelson's movie Effects from the 70s, which have a lot of Romero alumni, including John Harrison. So John, Dusty, and Mike are going to be on the show Saturday night talking about Mike's new extended cut of After Effects that will be coming out on Blu-ray shortly after the show, May, June time frame.
I guess I'm hoping he's going to drop the date on the show.
Yeah, I'm hoping so as well. So if you guys have a copy of Effects, check it out. Check out After Effects. It's going to be a great show. Those three guys are going to be absolutely hilarious. So we're going to see you guys back here on Saturday night for another episode.
All right, here goes that last clip.
Look, maybe I'm missing something here. You know, I mean, when this breaks up, you know, I'm like you, trade school dropout. I'm just not one of these 9-to-5ers, these wimps. I mean, they're looking for a way to slide. They want to loaf through life. I'm not like that. I mean, I love these bikes. These bikes make me very happy, and I love them.
The one for truth and justice and the American way of life and all that, that's got to take a back seat to the one for staying alive. You got to stay alive. Man, you can have the most beautiful ideals in the whole world, but if you die, your ideals are going to die with you. You stay alive, maybe your ideals get battered around a little bit, but they got a shot. Anyway, the important thing is we got to stay together. We got to keep the troop together. You can't just let it break up.
It's really not fair. I don't know. Maybe we should keep a percentage or something.
But you get your food and your supplies. And it is right that everybody gets the same amount of spending money.
All the decisions are made here. But the merchants, they're...